I'd like to start out by correcting a minor mistake from the first part of this review. Accelerator charges do not increase your dashing speed, they decrease the time it takes to charge beams and super missiles, which is tremendously helpful. Now that that's out of the way,
What the fuck is this? Shit!
the game regularly forces you to rub the Wii Remote's pointer all over the screen, scanning for some clue that you have no idea what it is. Like, as soon as you get into the ship, you're given this giant screen, you have no idea what's going on. You're supposed to focus in on the ship's logo, you're not told or given any vague hint about what you're even trying to find or scan for, you're given zero context. It's clear that this is in here to emulate the scan visor from the Metroid Prime games, but it's just irritating. The object you're supposed to scan almost always blends into the environment, and I can just about guarantee you'll solve every single one of these screens on pure accident. Wave the cursor around until it just happens to light up on what you're supposed to scan. Why did they even put this here? What did these sections add to the game besides annoyance? Is there someone who exists who thinks this is fun? Who thought this was a good idea? While we're on the topic of weird and freaking stupid ideas, there are several enemies in the game that you can kill by jumping on their heads and pushing a button to headshot them. Okay, why? It doesn't require skill, and it's just massively out of place for a Metroid game. Why even have these enemies when they're so easy to kill? How am I supposed to tell the difference between normal enemies and enemies I'm supposed to kill with a boot to the head? Alright, I know how you tell the difference. You try every single weapon on the enemy, and when nothing works, that's when you try jumping on their head. Plus, the control pad makes movements so stiff that it's hard to land a jump on their head in the first place. There are also enemies who you kill by, I'm not making this up, running head first into them to trigger another headshot QuickTime event. One could call this a questionable design choice, since running directly into a normal enemy kind of, hurts! Thankfully, the game developers caught themselves and realized this was a massively stupid idea, because when you run into one of these enemies, the game pops up a little reminder telling you to run into them to kill them. When the game has to directly tell you how to kill enemies, that's a good sign that your game's design is shit. Just, again, why is this in here? I can understand wanting to innovate, but there's reinventing a series, and then there's just gluing stickers on it for superficial changes. This adds nothing to the gameplay except confusion. Adam sends the Marines to various spots throughout the ship, and Samus is told to investigate Sector 1. In Metroid Prime, the levels are called the Chozo Ruins, Magmoor Caverns, Phendrana Drifts. Metroid Prime 2 has the Aegon Wastes, Torvus Bog, and Sanctuary Fortress. Other REMS levels are Sector 1, Sector 2, and Sector 3. And don't accuse me of nitpicking. Nitpicking would be complaining the energy tanks are red when they used to be blue, or complaining that the Federation troops' armor looks nothing like it did in the Metroid Prime games. Seriously, it's not even close. They're dead ringers for Iron Man Dio. There's a room fairly early in Sector 1 that has absolutely nothing in it except for a big empty liquid tank. You leave that room, you enter a new room where Samus finds 3 different ways to say a scientist was killed by something else than what killed the other scientists, and if you go back to that room, suddenly there's a creature you can fire a missile at to continue the game. Sequence breaking. The entire game is like this. You'll come across a door that's locked, and at some arbitrary point in the future, after you've done something completely unrelated, the door will unlock and you'll be able to proceed. You run into a locked door, and instead of wondering how you get in, you wonder what random shit do you have to do before the game will let you in. It's just bad design because there's no logic behind it. You meet up with the Marines in the exam room, where Mustache Marine tries to get data out of the computer while you and the other Marines go snooping around. This entire section has you stuck in a toe-curlingly annoying slow-motion walk as you walk through hallway after painfully long hallway. This goes on for about 5 minutes. Okay, game, I know you're trying to build tension and suspense, but all you're doing is pissing me off. What's funny is that you can run into 2 of the other Marines standing around and doing nothing. Dude, this bed is soft! Samus, climb into this bed with me and feel how soft it is! You're an idiot, Gary. You find out the ship is a research facility for testing species from across the galaxy to see which ones can be turned into bioweapons. This pisses off everyone involved, since bioweapons are kind of massively illegal, and the experiments are being overseen by someone named Madeline Bergman. Interesting, because bioweapons don't seem to be illegal in Metroid Fusion when the Federation tells you outright they're going to try weaponizing the X, but screw it. Actually, this whole research station is secretly growing weapons. Plot twist is kind of similar to Metroid Fusion, isn't it? A cynical man might call it a ripoff. I'm just wondering, who is the Federation fighting and how badly are they losing that they're frantically trying to weaponize literally every species they can find, because it's explicitly stated later in the game that the space pirates are all dead by this point. Weyland-Yutani is at least evil, so when they try to weaponize the aliens, it's probably because they just want to take over the world. I just don't see why the Federation is repeatedly experimenting with bioweapons they don't even need. You also learn that the Marines are equipped with pop guns because they run into a group of monsters and their bullets don't even mildly irritate the enemies. Screw bioweapons, just invest in bullets that can punch a hole through something stronger than cardboard. The only useful weapon any of them have is the plasma cannon wielded by Black Guy, and this thing takes longer to charge than Piccolo's special beam cannon, so these Marines are basically cannon fodder. You also have this annoying-ass minigame where a monster pins Samus to the ground and you have to shoot its tail before it stabs you. Why can't I just shoot this thing in the face? I think that would be sufficient to make it piss off. One of the white and mustache-less Marines turns up dead. There's a nice white guy and an angry white guy, and I think the angry one is the dead one? Now, whatever, who cares? You have another annoying scanning session, and I have no idea how long it would have taken me to figure this out if I hadn't heard about it in zero punctuation. All of the Marines are gathered around a dead guy, which you'd think is what you have to scan, but no, you're supposed to turn 180 degrees and scan a little puddle of slime on the ground. Outstanding. You follow the monster that pinned you down to Sector 3, which is the game's requisite fire level. Now, for those of you not familiar with Metroid, Samus has an armor called the Various Suit that, in addition to cutting all damage you take in half, also prevents you from taking damage in areas with intense heat. This suit is so ubiquitous that it's Samus' default costume in Super Smash Bros. And appears in pretty much every single promotional image you can find for Metroid games. So naturally, you set foot outside in Sector 3 and you immediately start taking damage because Adam, in his infinite wisdom, doesn't think to tell Samus to put on the Various Suit the second he sees rivers of magma, and Samus, in her infinite submissiveness, doesn't think to put it on herself. Because again, her suit isn't being jammed or disabled, she's actively choosing not to use it.
We'll determine weapon and equipment authorization after we get a better understanding of the situation.
You want an assessment of the situation? This place is full of goddamn lava and I have a heat-resistant suit! There's your assessment, fuckwit!
I am on fire! The burning! The burning!
Do you know how many volcanic take damage every second rooms you walk through before Samus gets permission to put on the Various Suit? 4. And Samus doesn't say a word to Adam, she just stays quiet and takes the shit when she could, of her own free will, put on the Various Suit and be protected from all this crap immediately. In fact, while she's at it, she could put on the Gravity Suit that lets you move through water, because that cuts damage you take in half also. So Samus is taking 4 times the damage she should from every single attack that hits her, because she's still listening to Adam. A lot of people jump on this sequence for Adam being an idiot who sends his troops out without protective gear. And he is, but I'm a lot more disturbed by how this sequence portrays Samus. Not only does she not put on the Various Suit to protect herself from boiling like an egg, but she has the ability to communicate with Adam. She could easily call his cell phone and say, hey, I don't want to burn to death, can I put the Various Suit on? And she doesn't. She doesn't even speak up. She just runs through this place without desperately needed protective gear that she already has because Adam said so. And people might argue she's just being a good soldier. That's the thing. She's not. She's not a soldier. She's a bounty hunter, not even on assignment. Here 100% of her own free will. She is under absolutely zero obligation to listen to a single word this douchebag says. She's following his orders and harming herself in this environment strictly because she wants to. She wants to harm herself, risk dying without the Various Suit, all because it's worth it to please Adam. People, fans of Metroid, people who like this game, do you not see a problem with this characterization? Samus Aran, intergalactic savior and well-established badass, is willingly and happily handicapping herself, subjecting herself to intense physical abuse in order to appease a father figure / romantic interest. When did she become the protagonist of the Lifetime Movie of the Week? People praise this game for developing Samus's character, but I don't think they stop to ask themselves, develop her into what? Is this a protagonist that you want to play as? And get this is the sickest part of the whole game. Adam dies near the end of the game, and it's played as a tragic scene. We are supposed to like this guy. We're not supposed to think that there's anything wrong with this relationship. The developers did not see a problem with Samus basically being violently abused by this asshole, and her being perfectly okay with it. This was not commentary on domestic abuse or anything clever like that. This was not on purpose. Sorry for the spoiler, but I thought you'd be happier moving forward with this game if you knew that Adam dies in the end. And if you've beaten Metroid Fusion, you already knew that anyway. A few rooms into Planet Mustafar, you fight this extremely irritating group of enemies. The third-person mode in this room is a massive pain in the ass because your beams will constantly lock onto the giant fiery ball in the corner instead of the enemies attacking you. Your power beam doesn't do shit to the enemies, so I do what any logical player would do and switch to the first-person mode to start unloading missiles into their faces. And I soak up damage since you can't move in the first-person mode. Seriously, in order to fire missiles without taking damage, you have to change the way you're holding the Wii Remote so it's pointing at the TV, hold B on the remote to lock onto an enemy, aim, fire a missile, and then get the controller back into its sideways position all over the course of 1 or 2 seconds, or else you take an unavoidable hit. So I take a buttload of damage using missiles because it's the only thing that might work against these enemies. Eventually Adam calls you up and says, "Your regular weapons aren't working, maybe you should try the Ice Beam." Oh, so the entire fight up until now has been a massive waste of time and health because I was just supposed to wait until the game arbitrarily gave me the Ice Beam. Now I'm at death's door from soaking up damage from using missiles to try and kill invincible enemies. Kiss my ass! And by the way, literally the first enemy the Marines come across is an enemy that the Marines can only kill with their freezing weapons. So why didn't Adam just give me the Ice Beam right then and there since his Marines are already authorized to use them? Because this entire power-up mechanic is pants on head, eat shit, retarded! Eventually, the giant hallway that is Sector 3 leads to a dead end because you can't proceed without the grapple beam. Now I don't know if I'm supposed to turn around or sit on ass for 5 minutes and see if the game gives me the grapple beam. Adam tells you to go to a different sector since you can't proceed any further. You know, there is a second option. Authorize the grapple beam, you waste of brain matter! Or are you afraid that the beam that lets me swing like Spider-Man and does nothing else is going to kill a survivor hiding in the ceiling? I'm expecting Adam to secretly be working for Bergman because he seems to be doing everything in his power to sabotage me.
You are either lying or you're stupid.
There exists an argument for why Adam doesn't authorize all of your weapons. In other Metroid games, you're basically death incarnate once you have all your weapons, and Adam is afraid you'll accidentally kill survivors. It's a bullshit argument because this place is pretty clearly foobarred, and even if it wasn't, Samus isn't a rookie, but there exists an argument. There does not exist any remotely valid argument why Adam doesn't authorize your Varia and Gravity suits immediately. They're strictly defensive pieces of equipment, they pose zero threat to anybody, and they'd actually, you know, keep Samus alive. So the tiny reason that the game tries to bullshit you with still doesn't make any sense. There's actually a well-known glitch in the game where if you try to backtrack after getting the Ice Beam, a door locks behind you and it never unlocks. You get trapped in this section and unable to progress. It's like the betrayal has reached a metaphysical level. Now the game makes itself unwinnable if you try to backtrack and explore like you're encouraged to do in all the other Metroid games. And even if you can get past the awful script, horrible voice actor, and absolute beyond crap first-person mode, even the general gameplay is just not pleasant. The running controls are stiff as hell since the control pad means you have 1 movement speed and can only move in 8 directions. You have no control over how you aim. Samus just shoots at whatever the hell she wants, and accuracy is pretty much a matter of luck. The control pad makes movement so stiff that facing an enemy so that you can shoot them is a constant pain in the ass, and there's no way to strafe around enemies, so aiming at an enemy means standing still or running straight towards them. Your regular beam just mildly irritates most enemies until much later in the game, and missiles are an epic pain in the ass to use, so in most fights I frantically run around the room, quickly turn around to fire off a charge beam shot, and then I continue running. I've heard Mother M plays a lot like Ninja Gaiden, which both games were made by the same developer, and I believe it because I think you're actually supposed to go for the headshot quick time events I mentioned earlier to kill most of the enemies, because you have the option of doing these QTEs on pretty much every non-cannon fodder enemy. So the game expects you to run into enemies to trigger executions. There are times when the game feels more like a brawler than a shooter. A few rooms into Sector 2, you come across a door that you can't open without super missiles, so I figure I'm supposed to wait here until Adam lets me have super missiles. But I hang around here for like 3 minutes and nothing happens. What am I supposed to do? Backtrack? I can't find anything worth backtracking to. Am I supposed to fire all of my missiles at this thing to get it through Adam's thick and empty skull that I need new weapons? What do you want from me? It turns out you're supposed to roll through a morph ball tunnel that's hidden along the wall, but do you see how confusing this is? The game gets you into the mindset that you have to wait for Adam to give you a power-up or wander around and trigger some random event to kickstart the plot when you're actually supposed to find a morph ball tunnel. Geez, toast always does land butter side down, doesn't it? If I'm going to keep dying, the least Samus could do is land on her back every now and then. Get a different view, know what I'm saying? Samus can do a sidestep if you press the control pad immediately before you take a hit, and if you abuse this ability, you can make yourself pretty much invincible. Check it. All you have to do is rapid fire mash any direction on the control pad every time you're in a fight, and you will automatically dodge pretty much every attack that gets thrown your way. This one simple exploit, if you keep it up, pretty much guarantees you will get through every single fight completely unscathed. Breaking this game's combat really is that simple. All you have to worry about after that is finding time to fire missiles. So pretty much nothing happens story-wise until you get to the end of Sector 2, when something interesting finally happens. You find another one of the Marines dead, and you also spot a survivor who promptly runs away from you. She tells you that the second dead guy was killed by a fellow Marine, and the Federation has sent someone to keep quiet everything they've been doing on the ship. Immediately after this happens, said traitor attacks you in a cleaning robot. The woman runs away, and rather than go after her like an intelligent person, Samus goes back to Sector 3 to keep looking for the monster you were chasing earlier. So I stopped looking for the monster in Sector 3 so that I could go to Sector 2, so that I could go right back to looking for the monster in Sector 3. Samus rides in an elevator and monologues to herself the entire story up to this point.
She would be targeted again.
Then why the hell didn't you go after her? Little Miss Drama Queen decides to dub the traitor the Deleter, and as soon as the elevator ride is over, we see another Marine getting killed by the Deleter. Okay, whoever wrote this story has no idea what pacing is. The thought that crossed my mind when I got to this part of the game actually was, finally something interesting happened. I'm 4 hours into the game and there's been no story other than investigate the ship. Pretty much nothing has happened to compel you to keep progressing through the story in the past 4 hours, and now 3 plot twists all go off at the same time. And then there's the Deleter himself. See if you can spot the problem here. When we first learn about the Deleter, there are 5 Marines left. The Deleter isn't Adam because he's been in the control room, the Deleter isn't Anthony because the Deleter doesn't have his plasma cannon, and 2 of the Marines get killed by the Deleter. Do you see a problem with the logistics here? The only 2 people who can possibly be the Deleter are Mustache Marine and Asian Guy. If either of them turns up later in the game, that guy has to be the Deleter, and they could have avoided this problem if they had just not thrown in this cutscene showing another Marine getting killed. The script is made of stupid! And that's not even the worst thing about the Deleter. Get this, the Deleter never pops up in the game again and gets killed off screen. I am not kidding. This guy does not do shit in this game except clear out the cannon fodder Marines that Adam brought with him. He contributes absolutely nothing else to the story. Hell, none of the Marines except Adam and Anthony contribute shit to the story either. After you go back through Sector 3, you run into Anthony and then see a really weird flashback of Samus's time in the Federation again. One of her friends is trying to fix the reactor on a rescue mission, but the reactor overloads and they have to jettison the reactor and lose the friend to save all the survivors. Samus, having never watched Star Trek II, pitches a hissy fit. I don't know why we're watching this cutscene other than to get a good look at teenage Samus's ass and to show Samus is insecure around Adam. Again.
Man. Did something like that happen now?
Oh, now I get the point of this cutscene, foreshadowing for when Anthony snuffs it. Hey, writers, pick up a dictionary, look up the word subtlety. Adam orders all the Marines to converge in the geothermal plant to look for the monster you were tracking earlier, and you find the monster torn apart like he lost a Mortal Kombat fight. You go into a dark room and get menaced by another monster you can't see.
Samus, blast the eruption port to get the magma flowing.
Yes, good thinking. I'll just blow that up. Wherever it is. Where the hell is it? What am I even looking for? What? Fuck! Am I supposed to shoot? Oh, is that who I think it is? Oh yeah! Ridley! The iconic boss that's been in almost every Metroid game. Finally! This is going to feel like a true Metroid game. Even if Ridley looks a lot more dorky than he did in all the other games. It's the long and narrow snout. It just looks weird. But whatever. Time to kick some dragon ass like a real Metroid game. Let's do this!